Well, there is a lot of talk about what is going to happen as far as congestion pricing and a very big development deal, Amazon. We have somebody right here who can speak to both of those. This is State Senator Michael Gianaris, who has come in here for us today representing the 12th District. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dana.
You want to talk about that off the top since we just heard from the governor about the congestion pricing thing?
Sure. I do agree with him on congestion pricing. I'm a supporter, I think, for two reasons. Number one, the congestion situation in Manhattan is out of control, and we do need revenues for the MTA. Honestly, what we would raise from congestion pricing would not even be enough to fill the hole that the MTA has. So it would be a start, and we'd have to find some additional revenue beyond that. But I agree with him on the overall policy.
But not a 30% fare hike.
Certainly not. I don't know. I haven't even heard anyone suggest that before today.
Right.
So I think the governor's being a little creative to identify the scope of the problem for people and encourage them to focus on congestion pricing as a solution. And hopefully it'll never come to anything close to that.
Well, let's now, Senator, talk about Amazon. And you have been a vocal critic of the deal. A lot of different rallies, a lot of things going on with residents in Long Island City and other parts of Queens, as well as union workers. There are so many avenues to this. Tell me, you say you're a guy from Queens, right? You want to do the right thing, right? Do the right thing. What is the right thing? How do you figure this out?
I am a guy from Queens. I'm born and bred and live in Astoria. I'm right there in that neighborhood. And the right thing is not to give $3 billion of our money to Jeff Bezos and Amazon to lure them to come here. They are the richest corporation in the country. And we can't set the precedent that anyone that's thinking of coming here is entitled to dip their hands into our pockets and take as much money as they can out of it. We have great needs. We just talked about the MTA. How are we going to give $3 billion to Jeff Bezos when we could use that money for the subways? Now, some people say that money only goes if jobs are created, but that's not entirely true. $500 million of that is a cash grant to them, outright. You're telling me we couldn't use $500 million to help the subway situation right now? So it's offensive to me that we're talking about giving all this money to a company that doesn't need it because they would need to be bribed to come to our area. Mike Bloomberg just the other day said something I agree with. They were coming here anyway because New York is desirable. It has the talent pool in terms of the labor pool that we have here in New York. Cornell Tech is just across the river from this location. And I think what happened is they knew where they wanted to go. They created this competition. We fell for it and are opening up the bank doors for them, and we shouldn't do it. So
when you say we, you mean the mayor, the governor, and all the celebration about it. Sounds like, wow, this is a big deal.
It was the mayor and governor primarily, and they kept everybody else out.
And they kept the council out and everybody else.
The council, the state legislature, everybody else. It was done in secret because Amazon insisted this all be done in secret. They made the state sign a non-disclosure agreement at the beginning of the negotiations. So we were unable to get information even when we asked about it.
Did this board, Public Authorities Control Board, that Andrea Stewart-Cousins has said you should be appointed to. However, Governor Cuomo has the final decision, right?
That's right.
So tell me, if you were on this board, because this is a board that makes these decisions, would you say no?
Well,
is it very black and white to you about the Amazon?
No, it's not black and white because we don't even know what might come before the board. The governor has given mixed signals whether pieces of the deal might come before the board, the whole deal might come before the board. Just yesterday he said maybe none of it has to come before the board. So we don't even know what might be presented to this group or not. So I would wait to see what was presented. But my view is very clear that the deal that's been reached should be unacceptable for all New Yorkers. People like Mike Bloomberg recognize it. People on the ground in Long Island City recognize it. If they want to say, okay, we made a mistake, this deal shouldn't happen, let's reset the conversation and see what Amazon can do to help that community absorb this massive, profound impact that they would make, that's a different conversation. And some of big tech is starting to get it. Amazon's not one of them. Microsoft just announced they're putting $500 million into affordable housing in Seattle because of the homelessness crisis created there by Amazon and some of the other tech companies. So it's starting to soften up, but Amazon's not there.
So just talking about jobs, because again, that's another one of those words. You hear jobs, you go, isn't this great? But what type of jobs are we talking about, and what is the makeup of Long Island City and that surrounding area in the 12th District? Well, who really will benefit from these jobs? That's a concern of yours as well.
Yeah, it's a great question. Nobody really knows. They're talking about average salaries, but it's unclear. If they decide to count Jeff Bezos as that location, his salary is so big, everyone else could be making nothing, and the average salary would be in six figures. So we're still trying to get that information. Part of the problem is we don't have all the information that we need. What we do know is in other parts of the country and even other parts of New York where Amazon has a presence, the tech industry tends to hire locally for about 27% of their job force, which means most of these folks are not going to be local. They're going to be coming in from elsewhere, and will be further stressing the housing market, the subways, the schools of that community.
You're putting yourself out there, some would say, political positioning. How do you react to that?
I'm just doing my job. I represent the people in my community, and I have a leadership role in the Senate where I get to think about what's best for the entire state right now. And it's not just me that thinks this is a really bad idea. There are a lot of people that think so. And so if people want to cast aspersions personally, that reflects more on them than on me. But I'm always going to do what I think is right, regardless of the consequences.
And the last thing I want to ask you is, let's say Amazon says, okay, bye New York City, we're going to Newark.
Or anywhere else, for that matter.
Sure, of course, anywhere else.
Or other parts of New York City, for that matter, right?
True,
we don't know
right.
what might happen. And that's a real question. But in my view, the deal that's been reached should not be acceptable to any New Yorker. If they say that's all we'll take or we're going to leave, then they should leave. If they want to say, we recognize people here don't want this, let's start all over again, sit across the table and figure out how we could be a good neighbor and a responsible corporate citizen, that's a conversation that should be had.
And also just, Senator, in the, we're talking about people leaving. There are a lot of people are leaving New York because it's what I heard the governor say in his speech today, the second highest tax rate, right? Second highest as far as the millionaires, all that up there.
Well, there's a lot of fudging going on. First of all, the #1 tax rate, according to that metric, is California, and their economy is doing just fine. The economy in the New York City area is booming, and the population of the New York City area is growing. When he says people are leaving, that's because he's factoring in economically distressed areas in upstate New York that are suffering population losses. So it's not really comparing apples to apples.
Here.
No, not at all. Certainly not in Long Island City, I can assure you of that. Anyone who looks at the cranes on every corner building knows that that's true. So it's not really a fair comparison. Long Island City is booming. The city economy is growing at a rate of 90,000 new jobs per year. This project would add about 2,000 to that. So in the scope of things, yes, jobs are important. 25,000 is a lot. When stretched out over 10 years, it's about 2% of the normal growth the city is already experiencing. So it's not some kind of revolutionary impact that it would have.
Who should control the MTA?
Somebody. Somebody. There are different proposals.
You know, he said the Terminator. That was his first graphic when the governor started his speech. He said the options are A, the Terminator.
Like Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yes. Well, he said the Terminator. I did think about the former California governor, but when he said the Terminator is familiar with rats.
Oh, I see.
In the subways. But anyway.
Like the ex-Terminator.
Yes, yes.
There are a number of proposals bouncing around. Some people say New York City should control at least the New York City Transit portion of the MTA. The governor is now making a suggestion that he should control the overall MTA. I think it's important to have accountability, and right now the MTA is less accountable, even though the governor does have the dominant control over it. He doesn't have an outright majority on the board, which I think is what his point is, and he wants to obtain that. That's something we're going to discuss over the next month. I think this is going to become part of the state budget conversation. I do think there's value in having accountability the same way we have mayoral control of the schools now. Somebody needs to be answerable for the crisis that's developing at the MTA.
It is really, a city this size, an agency that large, it's unbelievable. Yeah. Senator Michael Gianaris, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your time, and good luck with all the work in Albany.
Thanks very much.
So very important. Thank you.